This is a presentation of BSRN, Box Studios Radio Network. The Power Play Post Show is on the air, covering minor league hockey since 2003, and now covering the Binghamton Black Bears with news, reactions, and in-depth interviews only heard here. And now from the Box Studios in Kirkwood, New York, here is your host of the Power Play Post Show, Bob Howard.
And hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Power Play Post Show. This is the show for February 23rd, 2025. This is season 14, episode number 46, and episode number 485 in the long-running podcast that is the Power Play Post Show. Hello, everyone. I am Bob Howard. Thank you very much for listening. And what a show I think we have for you. So if you're listening to this Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday, or even Wednesday before we release our next episode, there's a lot of great information in this edition of the show. I'm going to break down the two games against the Motor City Rockers, wins number 14 and number 15 in the streak that is the Binghamton Black Bears winning ways right now, and they're obviously playing very well. Maybe they had a small hiccup in the second game in the first 10 minutes, but they rectified that. They changed what they were doing, and they came out winners in the end after scoring 7 unanswered goals. And yeah, I mean, that's just the way the Black Bears play. You know, in some cases they score in bunches, or you could see a difference in the way they're playing from sometimes when they're not playing their best to when they are clicking, and you can see the change happen. It's more clear with the Black Bears than I think any other team, and that's probably because we get so many long stretches of them playing so well that when they are not playing at their best, you can see it. You can just watch and get that feeling and know that they're not playing at their best. And then something happens. Sometimes it's that first goal, and then it just changes after that. Sometimes it's a big hit, a series of big hits. Something to that effect changes the energy in the game, and it's like they went and turned on the switch. They went from solar power to, power from the power lines or something. I don't know. But you can tell, you can see it. We have a great show. Gary Ryan's going to be on, and we're not talking really hockey. We're talking more, bigger stories that are happening right now in the Fed, from Justin Smith to expansion, to what Binghamton and Carolina fans are doing for the Dashers players, which I think is pretty remarkable. We're going to talk about that. I'm going to go into it just a little bit here in just a few seconds, but we, a great show. And then in between me breaking down the two games, I got 10, 11 minutes with Coach Sherwood after Saturday's game, and you'll get to hear that as well, to get hear his thoughts of the 15-game win streak, and just how important guys like CJ Stubbs and Gavin Yates, who are very close to him, and these are guys that he played with on the ice, and now he relies on them for being the leadership, being the guys that lead the way on the ice, physically, mentally, and emotionally for this team. So it's a good conversation with Brant Sherwood. It's been a little while since Brant and I have talked on air, so it was good to get that done on Saturday night after the 15th win in a row. But before we get to the meat and potatoes of everything, I do want to talk about what is transpired in the last probably 48 hours and what will transpire again in about 5 days. The almost said Danville Dashers, but that's who they are, really. Let's be honest. The Dashers Hockey Club. The story last week or this past weekend was that, the bus breaks down before they can even leave, it won't even turn on, right? And so the 7 players and their coach head down to Carolina, down to Winston-Salem to play 2 games against the Thunderbirds. And that's it. They went down in their own cars, their own vehicles. They had to sign a bunch of players so they could actually field, 17, 18 players in the games. Ryle Purdy, he starts in goal in both. They get totally waxed, right? And that's not even the point here. That doesn't even matter. What matters is what the Carolina Thunderbirds fans did. And it's not necessarily that they're starting trend, because we do know that Danbury did some similar stuff for the HC Venom players back when that organization was going through an ownership change, and just they didn't have much, and the Danbury faithful took care of the HC Venom guys. Well, the Carolina Thunderbirds, they raised money. The fans raised money, and they gave gift cards, and they gave them some food and wished them well on their way back to obviously Danville, Illinois. And Binghamton fans picked up on that. And I was contacted by Kelly Howe, and Kelly really wanted to do something. She posted, obviously, in the Binghamton Black Bears fan page, and offered to help with some of the logistics, because it's not just that easy to bring donations to an arena where they sell food, and they're going to get all antsy, and hopefully not too antsy about donations coming in and being taken over to the locker room of the Dashers. So, we're going to work on things. We're going to get that all arranged with the help of obviously the Binghamton Black Bears as well, because their fans want to do this for the Dashers. And honestly, this is why I love the hockey community. I really do. I just want you guys to know I do this show to kind of give back to you guys, right? To give you something to listen to for your love of Binghamton hockey. And I love being a part of the hockey community because of these types of things. And I'm not bragging. I don't care about any of that. What's great about this is that we're taking care of some guys that are going to come in who are trying to play pro hockey. They're young men, and some of them could be doing other things. They could be having full-time jobs doing stuff, and they're trying to live out their dreams. And we go to hockey games to enjoy our guys, the Black Bears guys, living out their dreams. And the fact that so many of the Carolina Thunderbirds fans and the Binghamton Black Bears fans are coming together to donate to them. I mean, it's just, some of it's just food and drinks and whatever. And so when they leave Binghamton next Saturday, they don't have to worry about snacks or whatever. They don't have to spend their own money. The money that they may not even be being paid anyways. According to some reports that I'm hearing, they're not even getting paid. What's going on there? I'm sorry, but what is really the F going on that these guys are not getting paid? And it sickens me. It really does. And so Binghamton fans are coming together, and they're going to help. Why? Because the hockey community is close. The hockey community cares about each other. Look at the reaction when Johnny Hockey passed away. All teams cared. All teams really came together because they knew how important Johnny Hockey was to the NHL. And in some ways, that's what FPHL fans have shown this year, is that we're all one hockey community. Yeah, we might be rivals on the ice. And let's be honest, all those Black Bears fans and all those Thunderbird fans, they really wanted to win those games, right? And they want those wins under their belts. I mean, we're talking about the two teams that met in the finals last year, the two teams that could potentially meet in the finals again this upcoming year. They wanted those wins against the Dashers. But the more important thing is they want to make sure that the Dashers players are taken care of. And it's really disgusting and sick that they have been left hung out to dry. It's terrible. It's just terrible. It's part of, unfortunately, what we deal with in single A hockey. Never saw this kind of disrespect to players when the AHL was here in Binghamton. And again, I want to stress this. Andreas Johansson is the best owner in the league. Period. 100%. The guys are taken care of here in Binghamton, and whenever something is needed, if the ownership group doesn't take care of the players, the Booster Club, one of the oldest booster clubs in all of the North America or United States when it comes to minor pro hockey, one of the oldest booster clubs, one of the most important booster clubs all out there. And this is a booster club that for even a little while, when we weren't in the AHL, we're still being invaded to AHL type of things for booster clubs. That's how important this booster club is in the world of minor pro hockey, right? So I just throwing that out there. Our team is good. We're good. I would know if they needed stuff. And matter of fact, our booster club has asked for donations and asked for things at the beginning of this year, things that we could gather. And the Binghamton hockey fans came together and did that for them. So we always take care of ours first, but there's nothing wrong with coming together and providing some donations. And I know there's water and Gatorades and candy and snacks and just electrolytes, things that are important to hockey players. And yes, candy and snacks are important to hockey players. Remember, we did 6 more questions with our guys last year, and there were things that came up there that our booster club listened to this show and got that information so they could provide things to the players. And as you all know, there are fans in the stands, Michelle, I think her name is, who provides Twizzlers to the penalty box for our team. We take care of our team. We take care of our team really well. The fans, the booster club, and the ownership group. This is not about them. This is about taking care of the Dashers. And I think that's great. I just wanted to talk about that early here in the show because we got a lot to go over, and I don't want to go too much longer. So let's get right into this. The Power Play Post Show is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast, YouTube, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Just search Power Play Post Show on whichever platform you listen to your podcast, and please subscribe. Please join the Power Play Post Show Facebook group. Just go to Facebook and search Power Play Post Show. Check out binghamtonhockey.net for all your Binghamton hockey information and curiosity. And on this edition of the Power Play Post Show, we have a nice 11-minute conversation with the Black Bears head coach, Brant Sherwood. And at the end of this show, we will be talking with the Fed League Flash's Gary Ryan. So pretty exciting there. Now, of course, as everybody knows, the Binghamton Black Bears won games 14 and 15 in a row against the Motor City Rockers on Friday night and Saturday night. So let's get into the Friday night game, all right? So this was obviously the game where they won. I believe it was 5-2. In the first period, the Black Bears got on the score sheet first after a tip-in goal from Chris Mott at the 9:14 mark in the opening period. As the fight with Fletcher and Smith was happening, Zach Soroda was streaking into the offensive zone with a puck. So, you know, in this game, sometimes players will make a decision to drop the gloves or take care of some business. This was a strange situation because Zach Soroda was streaking into the offensive zone and had a pretty good opportunity that was developing, and that's when Avery Smith and Josh Fletcher dropped the gloves, and Josh was really going for this one. I think Josh is really starting to amp up his game a little bit and his physicality. I think he fought both nights, so not surprised here, but it did kind of limit a Zach Soroda chance there, not that it was done on purpose. Dakota Bond was laying some massive hits before the 7:50 mark of the first period. Dan Weber took the initial shot on the first goal, and Chris Mott tipped it in. I'm pretty sure it was Dan Weber that took the initial shot. The Black Bears seemed to be playing with some physicality tonight. Fletcher, Bond out there throwing bodies and fists. The Rockers blocked shots in the period, making the shots on goal a little bit closer than it was. I mean, the Black Bears probably were also shooting into their skates a little bit. I would say the Black Bears had at least 6 shots not make it to Babin. The last minute of the period was controlled by the Rockers in the neutral zone, or in the zone in front of CMAC, but they did not generate any shots. But there was a lot of time in that last minute that they were in front of CMAC. Shots on goal in the first period were Binghamton 9, Motor City Rockers 7. Okay, in the second period, just 3:41 into the middle period, Dan Stone buries the Black Bears' second goal of the game while shooting from the high slot, giving the home team a 2-0 lead. Austin Thompson made this a 3-0 game with the third attempt in a sequence of shots on Trevor Babin in the third shot got past the Rockers netminder. The Black Bears scored their third goal in the period, making this 4-0. This time on a power play by the captain, Tyson Kirkby, scored from the high-risk area of the side of Babin. So, it's a high-risk area because you got a low chance of really making the shot. It was very similar, but on the opposite side of where Austin Thompson did it in the playoffs last year, where it's kind of, you're on goal line. He was probably about a foot more up the ice than Austin Thompson was. I think Austin Thompson's was a little bit more of a high-risk goal, but, it was just a beautiful goal. Tyson's was a little bit up, so his angle was a little bit better, just a tiny bit, not much. So it was pretty interesting. Let's see here. It was no surprise that a player from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, scored a very similar goal to Connor McDavid. Either way, Dan Superman Stone scored his sixth goal of the season. I do want to say that when I first saw the jerseys, EJ, if you're listening to this, it's not a knock on you. Wasn't my favorite reveal of a jersey, and then when the jersey came out on the ice, it was much better, and it kind of filmed pretty good too. First 2-minute minor came at the 8:38 mark of the middle period, a tripping assist to Jesse Anderson. The Brad Ritter cross-checking to Dakota Bond as he was streaking into the goal post looked very dangerous, and a small group of fans were thinking he should have been tossed for the play. They were just yelling it down in front of me. The Kirkby goal was after there was a rough stuff in the neutral zone, but the Black Bears calmed things down and scored the fourth goal of the game from a low percentage shot, but Tyson got it past Babin. That's the goal I was just talking about. But what's interesting there was there was a lot of physicality for about 30 seconds before the Black Bears were able to calm down and control the puck, and then Tyson got the goal. It was very interesting. If you go back about, I'd say about a minute and a half before he scored the goal. And it's a pretty interesting sequence that happened there. No penalties were called, and Tyson got the goal anyways. It was almost like he got the last laugh on the Rockers because they were really trying to be physical at that point, trying to disrupt what the Black Bears were doing, and Tyson still got the goal. There's been a certain sense of physicality in this game from both teams. However, the Black Bears are coming out on top in most of those battles. A lot of the shots on the Black Bears this period were, and when they pepper Babin, he gets beat. Shots on goal, Binghamton 15, Motor City 10. Let's see here, totals were Binghamton 24 and Motor City 17. Probably a low shots on goal for the Black Bears after 2 periods of play. Probably one of the lowest this year, but I'd have to go back and actually look at that. In the third period did not start the Black Bears how the Black Bears would have hoped, with Eli Rivers, their leading goal scorer, scoring an unassisted goal just 19 seconds into the final period. The Black Bears get their four-goal lead back with a goal from Gavin Yates, who scored at the 4:50 mark of the third period. The Rockers get their second goal of the game. 6:22 left to go in the third period off the stick of Nicholas Miguel Diaz. Okay, the Rockers' first goal happened so quickly, I missed it. I didn't even see it. I had my head down on my laptop and I was prepping a couple things for the third period and missed that. Just when you think Gavin Yates has not made an impact in the game, he scores a goal in the third after reading the play and sending it to a parked Chris Mott on the far side of the net. Initially, the goal was called for Chris Mott, and I thought he tipped it in, but Gavin was able to sneak it past Babin and the far post without helping there. Overall, just a very chippy game by both teams. Concerning that, again, the Black Bears have allowed a couple goals in the third period, but when you score 5 per game, I guess we can let that pass. By the way, just not impressed with Babin's play so far. Out of position and just not as quick as I remember him being. I remember the hype going into the Babin stuff last year, and Coach Sherwood was not buying into it. He said, we're going to beat him. We are going to get into his head, and we're going to beat him. And they did. They really did. All right. This was the Black Bears' 14th win in a row. That was Friday night. And their 35th win. They They were the first team to breach the 100-point mark with the win standing at 101 points, the first team in the league to get to 100 points this season. Shots on goal, Binghamton 17, Motor City 10 in the third period. Totals, Binghamton 41, probably one of their lowest ones this year, believe it or not. 41 shots on goal is kind of low for the Black Bears, usually in the high 40s, leading into the low 60s, depending on how the three periods stack up. And then Motor City had 27 shots on goal. So let's see here. What's the final score notes? Basically, Tyson Kirkby with his 28th goal of the season and had an assist. Austin Thompson with his 26th goal of the season, and he had an assist. Dan Stone scored his 6th goal of the season. And Dan Stone is really starting to kind of kick in some of that offensive skill of his. Gavin Yates scored his 14th goal of the season. Chris Moss scored his 8th goal of the season, scoring the first goal of the game. And Dan Weber with 2 assists in the game. Connor McNamara earned his 22nd win of the season, saving 25 of 27 shots. The Black Bears win their 14th game in a row and now improve their record to 35-4-1 with 101 points. The two teams, and we'll talk about this in just a little bit after we talk to Coach Sherwood, they will they played again on Saturday night. Now, I want to say Chris Mott playing up on the second line, filling in for Kyle Steffen. He has played well. I think that has been a great thing. I think Dan Stone has been playing well as of late. C.J. Stubbs playing very good as of late. And Dan Weber, even though he doesn't show up on the score sheet, is taking some leadership role with this team. I know he's the practice captain, and they call him Lieutenant Dan. But on the ice, he's doing all of the right things. He's even pinching at moments, coming in the offensive zone. And he knows that his teammates are going to back him up, but he's doing it in a way where it's not hurting the team, and it's actually helping the team. And I think it's helping the team when they're not necessarily having great offensive moments. He's kind of kicking into a gear. And you got to remember, Dan Stone is a big boy, right? So it's not like a small forward is going to push him off the puck or push him around. It's going to take a big guy to knock Dan Weber around. So I thought that I just wanted to bring that up. And same thing in the second game on Saturday. You know, it took a big guy to kind of push Dan Weber around a little bit. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But hey, let's get to our talk with Coach Sherwood. All right, and then we'll come back and we'll go over the Saturday game, and then we will get into our interview with Gary Ryan. So coming up next here on the Power Play Post Show, my conversation Saturday night with head coach Brant Sherwood. We'll be right back right after this, right here on the Power Play Post Show.
Hi, this is Don Biggs from the 92-93 Binghamton Rangers.
Hi, this is Brandon Buczynski.
This is Grady Wittenberg, the voice of the Binghamton Senators, and you're listening to the Power Play Post Show.
Here is another Power Play Post Show interview exclusive with Bob Howard.
Coach, let's start off with 15 wins in a row. I think the league record is 24 by Carolina, way back about 5 or 6 years. But talk about 15 in a row for this group.
It's amazing. We've done it in different ways, whether it's blowing out teams or close calls, but I really think that Columbus weekend really set the tone for us for the rest of the year, and we've just been carrying that momentum ever since. So it's been very fun to watch. It's made my job a lot easier, and we've been having a lot of fun lately.
Tonight there was a little bit of adversity. The Rockers get the first couple goals of the game, and maybe it kind of looked like it was possible that the streak was going to end. But then, as this team does, they turn on the switch, or they flip the switch, and they took control of the game after that.
Yeah, and I honestly thought they did it pretty quickly. I know C-Mac would want that first one back, but it's a great wake-up call for us. You got to face these little adversities throughout the game, and they got to manage it well, and they did a great job. And I really think we controlled the majority of the game, maybe like close to 50 minutes, and that's kind of how I base it off. Sometimes the score doesn't really reflect what it is. It ended up reflecting it in the end, but our possession, the way our ozone rotations were going, it was quite the sight. Also, our speed through the neutral zone, our D using the net to get up the ice and taking what's in front of them. They handled that 2-0 deficit very well, and they just respond. They always respond, whether it's a goal against, they'll have a good follow-up shift after that, or you're down by 2. They know what to do, and don't tend to cheat offense, but play the right way and start chipping away.
I want to get your comments on all 3 of the 3 stars tonight, but first, last night Dakota Bond in one shift just nailed some major league hits on a couple of the Rockers. Was there a challenge to Dakota? Because you don't usually see that body work by Dakota that much, but in one shift he took out 2 Rockers pretty easily. The play of Dakota Bond has been pretty impressive, but that was an interesting little add to his game.
Well, the first 5 minutes didn't go so well, and I thought Motor City came out with a ton of physicality, and the Venom are complete opposite of that, so we kind of shied away from it. So in the first media timeout, I had to snap on the boys and tell them to ramp up the physicality, and there you go. They don't complain or look for an excuse. They just go out there and bang, and that's exactly what Dakota Bond did. As my grandmother would say, he's always right there. And he truly is. He's always in your face. He's annoying. Even when I hop in a drill for these guys in practice, he's just there. And his stick's there, his body's there, and he causes turnovers, and then he heads north quickly. He's truly an amazing player, and we're very, very lucky to have a leader and a human being like Dakota Bond in our room.
And then when we look at the 3 stars tonight, you have special relationships with 2 of them for sure, and I know Chris Mott is becoming one of your favorite guys as well on this team. But talk first about Gavin Yates and just kind of his role. He's getting to the point where he's like one of the older statesmen on this team, and yet he still finds a way to produce, especially at the important times.
A couple milestones tonight.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he got his 300th point as an FPHL, and then what was it?
200
as a Black Bear. I can't even keep up with him. That's how many points he scored. But I love Yates. I played with him in Pensacola. I always saw his craftiness with his boots and how he gained zones. It's a stat that's not written up in our league, but
right.
We all notice it, how he gains zones, and then he's been moving the puck a little quicker. He's had a quicker trigger, I'd say. Even that shot coming through the middle and Stubbs bangs home the rebound, just a little simplifying and executing off the rush. So he's been crushing it. That line's really came together, and it goes to say like, hey, you can plug in anyone anywhere. Steph goes out, Mott comes in. Mott hasn't been getting the minutes that he probably deserves, much like Caden Henry, but, Mott wants to stick it out here and, win a championship. So he fills in that role, and that kid's worked so hard to get to this moment, and he's capitalizing on it. It's amazing to watch. And then with CJ Stubbs, one of my best buddies, his slip plays at the blue line, his craftiness, how he sets up guys around him, he makes everyone better on the ice, and then he can bury too. He's got a filthy shot, but most of all, it's his craftiness with the puck. He has these little 5-foot passes. He can dish it out to the point, and then most of all, he can protect the puck so well. So big body like him, these guys are clicking, and when Kirk's line might not have the most goals, these guys step up. It's always someone stepping up, so they all follow each other's suit.
Let's talk a little bit about the Don father, right? Donald Oliveri. I think he's got like 19 goals, 11 of them are power play goals. How important is he, not just on the power play, but also what he's doing now on the top line with Kirks and Austin Thompson, which I hear there's a hoodie. I haven't seen it yet. It's the Three Stooges, and it's the 3 of them. But still, again, back to Don. How important is his play, both 5-on-5, even strength, and on the power play?
Yeah, those Three Stooges, it's like Rodman, Jordan, and Pippen.
Yep.
It's looking like. No.
Don, the best line in the FPHL, Brant.
Yeah,
without a doubt.
Yeah, so with Don, it's his stick. Mm-hmm. Like, everyone sees it. I really think he has like an AHL shot, NHL shot, whatever league you want to call it. But he's got a cannon. And you saw a little blue line work, and he was kind of chirping our D a little bit. That's how you shoot the puck, but also you gotta thank his buddy Tyson Kirkby for having a great net front screen. But yeah, even his chips out of the zone, he's making smarter plays with the puck in the D zone. He might not have the best legs, but he's so smart, and he knows what he's doing with it beforehand, and that's what separates him, is his hockey IQ.
I've talked about in the past, over the last couple of years, about the net front presence by Austin Thompson. Gets beat up all the time back there, but he works so hard for the team. But Tyson also, in front of that net, like you just mentioned with the front net screen, very big. You have like 4 or 5 guys that are just so good in front of the net.
Everyone's expected to do it. We practice it a lot.
Not everyone does it.
Not everyone does it.
There's
some guys that take the option on it where I wish they didn't, but
I would take the option.
There's some, you got to have those gritty players, and if you want to score goals, you got to get to that area, or if you want to help out your buddies. Mm-hmm. That's what's important. We love going low to high in our D, walking the line, and getting shots through layers. But if they get it, it's pretty easy for a goalie to play, pitch and catch if a shot's coming from, 40, 50 feet out, whatever it might be. But if you have someone in front and there's traffic there, those floaters can go in sometimes. But our D have been ripping the puck. It was a problem at the beginning of the year, but then we addressed it in practice, and we started getting some good blue line shots. I always say, hey, aim for the kneecaps, and and you got to get it through layers. It has to be hard enough to at least make it through the first layer. Now, if they stop it with the second layer with a block shot, it's okay, but it needs to get through that first layer and get low.
You guys have won 23 out of the last 24 games. What has been the key to that? Because you only have 4 regulation losses. 1 loss in the overtime, which was a shootout loss. 8 rounds. I can remember all this because there hasn't been that many losses. 2 against Port Huron, 2 against Watertown. It's really easy to kind of go through these and whatnot. But these last 24 games, why have you guys been clicking so well?
Depth and leadership, and then it's just it's also just a connection with this brotherhood. Like these guys have been playing together for a while, and it's just the core staying together. We had a couple call-ups and stuff, but all these guys just want to play here. Now we're like kind of past the point of call-ups. Unless the coach team calls for an emergency, I'll give a player grace there. But other than that, it's like we're dialed in to win a championship, and we don't care who scores which night. It's all about contributing what you can on any given night.
Lastly, before I let you go, some people have criticized my show of not critiquing the team enough.
It's hard to critique.
So if you could find a critique in the last 23, 24 games for this team, I'll let you do the critique. What would be the one thing that you want to see gets a little bit better over the last, 15, 14 games? Tough, right? Because I know
it's tough. I got a couple. Like I'm always critiquing these guys. I think we can just have a little bit better communication on the ice. Even if it's just like close plays, like whether we're calling for releases, middle bumps, or strong side wall plays, little soft chips. I think we can just have that little communication on the ice a little bit more. Like sometimes the eye contact and reading off each other isn't good enough. It's hard. It is hard.
How about the defensive zone work tonight? Because parts of the game was tough in your own zone, which kind of led to a couple of goals.
Yeah, I would just say poking hopes. You got to stop on pucks and have good habits and stay in the shooting lanes. But for the most part, I am satisfied with our D zone.
Yeah.
There's I guess I would say just simplifying our game, because in playoffs we won't be able to make all these cute little plays, sauces, or like drop passes and stuff. Sometimes you got to be a little bit more direct and dictate the game yourself. So I would say simplify it, and that even means just like when you have a shot, take the shot. You don't have to make the extra pass. You can create stuff off rebounds. You can get pucks back that way. But I would say simplify. And that goes along with puck management, knowing what to do with the puck at the right time of the game. First 5 minutes, you don't want to be causing turnovers at the offensive blue line. You want the puck getting behind their D. But if there's plays to be made, I want them to make those plays. But if it's even numbers on a rush, we got to chip that puck and get it back.
Fine-tuning the rest of the way? Is that what it is?
Fine-tuning. We'll keep getting better each day. What I've been telling these guys, enjoy the win, but then flush it the next morning. We got to move on. Yeah.
Awesome. Coach, thank you very much. Congratulations on, so far, 3/4 of the season being outstanding.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Bob.
If you're a Binghamton hockey fan, then you need to check out binghamtonhockey.net for all your news, stats, information, the Binghamton Hockey Hall of Fame, top 10 lists, profiles, and so much more. That's binghamtonhockey.net. You're listening to the Power Play Post Show.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Power Play Post Show. That was, of course, Brant Sherwood. And now let's get right into Saturday night's game. So the Black Bears complete the weekend sweep and series sweep of the Rockers on Saturday night by the score of 7-3. Now, what this means is they won not only their 15th game in a row, right, their 36th game overall, but they also beat the Rockers in all 5 meetings this year. Okay. In the first period, the Rockers took an early lead in the game with Avery Smith getting a goal past Connor McAnanimo just 1:46 into the opening period. Not a fresh start for the Black Bears. The Black Bears suffer from another defensive zone turnover. Both of these goals were defensive zone turnovers as the Rockers scored their second goal of the period off the stick of Igor Kabatadev. We'll just call it that, at the 9:25 mark. Let's see here. Gavin Yates then cut the lead in half with a goal at the 11:16 mark of the first, putting his 15th goal of the season past the Rockers' Trevor Babin. In first period notes, let's see here. First goal was a turnover just past the blue line as the Black Bears were being tied up by the Rockers. Then a shot, I think, just beat C-Mac. It just beat them. The Rockers, 6:38 into the first period, are playing differently than last night. A little bit more solid defensively. At least I thought that in the first period, at least through the first 10 minutes at least, which helped create those opportunities where they scored the 2 goals. All right, the Rockers, 6:38 into the first period, are playing differently. Then the second Rockers goal was just another Black Bears D-zone turnover, and the Rockers are just taking advantage of that. However, I am okay with this happening in the first period. In this game, let the adversity come early, and this is something I brought up with Coach Sherwood, as you guys heard. It's good for the team to be behind a little bit and have to fight through some games like this, or at least fight through a period like that, right? To make them feel like, hey, this is what it's like to be behind. This is what it's like to have to, change gears, amp up the energy, or whatever it might be, right? And not that I feel like their energy was bad in the first period. I just don't think that they made the right decisions, best decisions, and the Rockers just kind of outplayed them for the first 10 minutes, right? The Rockers are trying to take care of the offensive zone time, streaking in with the puck and getting unexpected chances on Z-Mac. You can tell that the Black Bears are still very steady with their play, though. And what I mean by that is they didn't panic. No matter how that first 10 minutes went, no matter what you saw, defensive breakdowns and next to the blue line and allowing the Rockers to get good, clean shots against C-Mac, they didn't panic. There was like a calmness still about the team, even though when they were down 2-0 before Gavin scored the goal. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Now, the Black Bears lead in shots on goal. However, the Rockers had maybe the better chances in front of C-Mac, especially with 4 defensive turnovers in their own zone. I at least counted 4, defensive turnovers, which is going to happen, I guess. But usually with the Black Bears, 2 of them don't turn into goals. Shots on goal in the first period was Binghamton 7 and Motor City 13. In the second period, with Cody Oakes in the penalty box for hooking Zach Sirota, the Black Bears' second power play unit scored the Black Bears' power play goal off the stick of CJ Stubbs, tying the game at the 10:09 mark of the second period. I think CJ Stubbs is comfortable now in this system. He's comfortable playing in Brant Sherwood's style of hockey, and it's really starting to show because, when you look at his numbers, when you look at CJ Stubbs and what he's done in the past 15 to 16 games, pretty impressive. And he does all the little things right, as I wrote in my day after game report. The Black Bears take the first lead of the game at 3:18 left to go in the middle period as CJ Stubbs scored his second goal of the game, putting the Black Bears up 3-2. Now, Josh Fletcher then made it 4-2 with his fourth goal of the season, just 2:04 left to go in the period. The Black Bears D-zone turnovers continue in the second period. Luckily, the first one did not hurt the home team in the first 5 minutes of the period. After the Black Bears power play goal, the game started to open up with a little bit more of a run and gun style, which benefits the Black Bears. As we know, I don't think anybody in the league can match them in a run and gun style. The flow of this game has changed, and the Black Bears are getting the better chances and have scored 4 unanswered goals to take the lead. To take a 2-goal lead. The Black Bears have turned the switch, and whatever the Rockers were doing to slow down the Black Bears is not working now. Josh Fletcher drops the gloves for the second time in the weekend. He will do anything for this team, fight, score goals, hit someone, doesn't matter. Now the Rockers are frustrated. So at some point at the end of the second period, I realized the Rockers are really getting frustrated. So much so that at the end of the second period, they started yapping with Dan Weber. I think someone actually hit him, maybe pushed him, and with Donald Oliveri. Now, of course, the Don father pointed to the scoreboard, sometimes teams trailing try to get into the heads of a team. It will not work with the Black Bears because, again, you have vets like Donald Oliveri on there. He's going to be like, dude, look at the score. Just look, we're winning. So and it's so funny because he does it with a smile on his face. It's hilarious. Don, if you're listening, keep being you. Just keep being you. The Black Bears dominated the last 17 minutes of the period easily. Shots on goal, Binghamton 19, Motor City 7. Now Black Bears lead in shots on goal 32-14. In the third period, the Black Bears, after killing 2 early penalties in the final period, get their 5th goal 8:18 into the final 20 minutes off the stick of Donald Oliveri. Chris Mott scored his 9th goal of the season, 2 goals in the weekend playing on that second line. I'm telling you, putting the game out of reach at 6-2 with a 6:29 left to go in the game. Austin Thompson added to the rout with a goal, 4:48 left to go in the game, making this a 7-2 lead for the Black Bears. The Rockers started and ended the scoring with their 3rd goal of the game, scored on the power play by Josh Colton with 2:47 left to go in the period. So third period notes. The Black Bears started the third period with a couple penalty kills, and the Rockers only get 1 shot on goal during 4 minutes of power play. And you're just not going to score power play goals if you only get legit 1 shot on the netminder, and especially not with Connor McAnanima. All right. Funny how it is. Black Bears have to kill 2 penalties, including an Oliveri interference penalty, and he is the one to give the Black Bears their 5th unanswered goal of the game. I cannot emphasize enough how a game like this is important. And I talked about this with Coach Sherwood, obviously, which you guys already heard. Going down 2-0 in the first period is something that shocks and pushes the team to take stock in how they are playing. I know the Black Bears are good, and I've seen them beat Trevor Babin in the past, but his performance this weekend just doesn't live up to the Dark Knights reputation. The Black Bears have now won 15 straight games, still a bit off the record in the league, which is at 24 in the 2018 and 19 Carolina Thunderbirds season. The Black Bears are now 36-4-1 and have 104 points. Next week, the Dashers come into town for 2 games. Unless something changes, I think the results will be the same. Shots on goal, Binghamton 12, Motor City 6. The totals were 44 for Binghamton and Motor City 20. So Motor City did accomplish something. They found a way to play very similar to how Port Huron was able to limit Binghamton's shots, but I don't know if they necessarily limited the quality shots. So maybe in the beginning of the game, the first 10 minutes, maybe they didn't have a lot of quality chances. And I think the shots on goal after it was 2-0 was like 3-2 or 4-3, something like that, right? In the Rockers' favor. But then it changed, and it just kept changing. So they were able to have a little bit of success against the Black Bears in the first 10 minutes, but then after that, the Black Bears just do what they do, and they take over. All right, final score notes. Black Bears winning streak extended to 15 games, sweeping the Rockers. CJ Stubbs scored 2 goals and 2 assists for 4 points. Gavin Yates had a big night. Right, this was a big night for Gavin. Gavin scored a goal and assisted on 2 goals, which put him over 200 points as a Black Bear. Gavin also registered his 300th FPHL point in that night. So congratulations, Gavin. You always kick butt, and you know it. Dan Stone assisted on 2 goals in the game. Tyson Kirkby assisted on 2 goals in the game. Now, he had the goal on Friday night, but did not score on Saturday night. I still think he played a solid game. There were certain points of the game that he was doing that isn't going to show up on the scoreboard, but he did have 2 assists in the game. Josh Fletcher scored his 4th goal of the season and dropped the gloves again tonight. Donald Oliveira scored his 19th goal of the season. It was even strength, wasn't on the power play, so he's got to keep that balanced a little bit, right? Chris Mott scored his 9th goal of the season and assisted on another, and just was effective. Like, one of the things that Coach Sherwood said, like, listen, I mean, the way their systems are and the way that he's playing on the third line and sometimes as the 10th forward, he was able to bounce right into Kyle Steffen's spot and perform. And that's great. That means Kyle Steffen can rest up. He can heal. He can get healthy and then come back. And it's a good thing that the team didn't miss a beat. Right, and so that's pretty awesome, and congratulations to Chris Mott. Austin Thompson scored a goal and assisted on another goal. Again, Mr. Consistency, right? How many times am I going to say this? The guy scores as much as he helps, right? It's just the way it is. Connor McAnanima getting the 2nd start of the weekend, wins his 23rd of the season and saving 17 of 20 shots. The Black Bears win their 15th game in a row and improve to 36-4-1 with 104 points. Great weekend for the Black Bears, obviously. Sure, maybe they had a rough start on Saturday night in the first 10 minutes, but they went and scored 7 unanswered goals until the Rockers scored their 3rd goal in the 3rd period. So, again, great weekend for the guys. I think there's really no complaints on anybody's part. And there's just a little bit of fine-tuning still left to do, as Coach Sherwood said. You just you work on a couple of the things, maybe how you're breaking out of your defensive zone to make sure that you don't have the turnovers, making sure that the neutral zone transition is good. You want to get in there and out of there cleanly. And the Black Bears probably do that better than anybody, right? But you could always continue to practice it and work on it. There's video to look at. You can look at those 2 goals in the Saturday game. So there are things that they can look at, even though they've won 15 in a row, right? And I think one of the things I want to bring up before we get to the Gary Ryan interview is this. They have the Dashers coming up, right? Binghamton fans are going to take care of some of the Dasher players. That's awesome, right? But also at the same time, the Black Bears probably going to play the 2 hardest mental games that they're going to come up with. And what I mean by that is this. You can look past the Dashers, right? Because after that, you got the Blue Ridge Bobcats in the Continental Division, 3 games in 3 nights. You can look past the Dashers and start preparing for the Bobcats and what's going to happen. You're going to miss something. It's a mental mistake, and the Dashers walk out with a win. And you break their streak, they break your streak, or whatever, however you want to phrase it. So I still feel that this upcoming weekend's games might be the toughest, not physically, maybe not skill-wise, but the toughest mentally, to make sure that you're up for the games and that you want to do that. And nobody wants to embarrass the Dashers. That's not what this is about. But what this is about is that they continue to win the games that they're supposed to win. And the way the Black Bears are playing, they should be beating the Dashers this upcoming weekend. However, they got to play the games on the ice. And that's how it works. And the Dashers also have to come into these games thinking they have a chance. Because if you come into a game thinking you don't have a chance, you're absolutely not going to win. So I'm going to leave it with that. So coming up next here on the Power Play Post Show is Gary Ryan. We talk about 5 stories around the FPHL that aren't really related to much of the games. Big trade that happened earlier today, sending Brendan Golgan to one of the Empire Division top players, which is the Watertown Wolves. So that'll be interesting to see how that spans out there. And a few other really important stories. We'll be right back right after this, right here on the Power Play Post Show.
You're listening to the Power Play Post Show. Here is another Power Play Post Show interview exclusive with Bob Howard.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Power Play Post Show. As promised, right here on the Power Play Post Show, we have our good friend Gary Ryan from the Fed League Flash. You can catch the Fed League Flash on about 15 different platforms, just like you can the Power Play Post Show as well. But the big ones are YouTube, Spreaker, Spotify, all of the major ones, iHeartRadio. I think even you got it on Amazon Music as well, which is pretty cool. So, Gary, welcome back to the show. Thank you very much for joining me. We got some interesting things to talk about, some good things, some bad things. But either way, thank you very much for joining me.
Not a problem. Always glad to be here.
Let's first talk about what happened today. We found out today a big trade happened between the Zydeco and the Wolves, which is sending goaltender Brendan Colgan to the Wolves. This, to me, is probably going to go down as one of the bigger trades. Brendan Colgan's going to bring his sub-3 goals against average, his above career save percentage of .916. Essentially, this is an excellent get for the Watertown Wolves. And then he returns to the place where he really started his career.
Yeah, exactly. He's familiar with everything there. I was pretty floored by it when I heard the news. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things that I know that was going on behind the scenes, which I really cannot talk about.
Sure.
Just wouldn't be fair to. When it was finally official, I thought, nobody saw this coming.
Now, you said there's some things behind the scenes you can't talk about. Do we need to call Justin Schmidt and ask him? Because he seems to be very vocal. Now, we'll talk about Justin Schmidt in a little bit. But again, this is a great trade, really, honestly, for the Watertown Wolves, who are in third place in the East or the Empire Division right now in 65 points. They're 4 points behind the Danbury Hat-Tricks. They've played 2 less games than them, so they got 2 games in hand. But this is a big trade for Watertown because we're not talking about, even if they move a goaltender to the Zydeco from the Wolves, it's not equal. I would say Colgan is, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, is probably one of the top 5 goaltenders that have played in the last 4 or 5 years here in the Fed.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, his best season was 2 years ago in Columbus. He's had a little bit of a rough year this year, stats-wise. I still think he's better than most as far as goaltenders go in the league. And he's got the resume. He basically, he's like, I've got 11 shutouts to my record, so obviously I can stop the puck for you. So, a lot of teams would be thrilled to have someone of his caliber.
Yeah, who do you start? Do you start Anton Bedorkin or do you start Brendan Colgan? I mean, to me, I think the easy choice is Colgan, but does this make Justin Coachman's job just a tiny bit harder in a good way, that he's got 2 goaltenders that he really has to really make a hard choice with?
Yeah, I mean, in the Fed, you really don't have many teams that have what we would call the 1A and the 1B. Usually you have one goaltender that's a lot better. We are blessed in Binghamton to have a 1A and 1B. Carolina has a 1A and 1B.
Sure.
So there are coaching challenges with that if you're coachman, but at the same time, I look at Borodkin, and I mean, he's been the workhorse. I mean, I think he's played in
at least 28 games. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's playing three-quarters of the game, and that is an awful lot to put on a young goaltender. I mean, this is Borodkin's really first big pro experience. So, and he hasn't been the same the last 3-4 weeks as he was at the beginning of the year when the team got off to that hot start. I just thought, my goodness, this guy is a beast. He looks a little bit beatable now. And so I think that the Wolves being able to get someone, especially of Colgan's stature, I mean, that is huge, because now they got the luxury of, we've got two really good guys, and we don't have to put all the stress on one guy anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And what does this mean for the Zydeco? Because I would assume that with a player to be named later, that could mean one of the goaltenders from the Wolves obviously goes to the Zydeco. But when we think about it, right now they have Bailey Stevens under contract. Jack Hudak is there as an e-bug. So what does this mean for the Zydeco? Do they go out looking for somebody, or are they going to try to make a deal with the Wolves as the player to be named later, one of the goaltenders that are up at Watertown?
Well, that's just it. I mean, that's kind of an unknown right now. This is only my own personal opinion, but to me, the logical choice for that player to be named later would be Eloi Bouchard.
Right.
But, because now you've got Colgan and Borodkin. I mean, Bouchard is going to be looking for work somewhere. I don't know if it comes via this trade or if Baton Rouge looks at the other issue that they have had recently, and that is their offense. They might be, looking at a couple of the big scorers from Watertown saying, well, they've got a glut of talent up there.
Sure.
We could really use another guy here. It could be that Coach Thompson decides, well, we've got college signees. There's a lot of people here.
Yeah.
There might be people that he's scouting out that we don't know. Or he might, have someone else in mind that has that experience that isn't currently playing.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, and I know from talking with Coach Sherwood last night after the game in Binghamton. I mean, he's got about 7 or 8 guys that he's going to look at college-wise to come in, even a couple goalies. So I would imagine that Coach Thompson down there has those options as well. So we'll see how that plays out. Gary, thanks for your thoughts on that. Let's move over to what really kind of hit the news and the fad on social media, and that was Justin Schmidt. Now, if you don't know who Justin Schmidt is, fans, he's a guy who's played in the league for about 4 years and not currently playing with a team right now, and just kind of came out and started talking about issues within some of the teams, couple of the teams, few of the teams, maybe 4 of the teams potentially. And that there are issues with how the players are treated professionally and how the situation kind of like is happening in those cities. I know that, and to me, we'll talk about Carolina and Binghamton and what they're doing for the Dashers in a little bit, but. I sent you the information to kind of watch what Justin was saying. Justin is not a man of a lot of words. It was a little painful to kind of get through the whole thing, partially because on one side, I don't think he's a professional talker. I don't think he's a professional, but he was talking from his heart. He was talking from a sense of pain that is in him because he is a professional player playing at this level and does not like seeing what he's seeing. But at the same time, I don't think he could get the words out the way he wanted to in some of the cases. Your thoughts on what Justin Schmidt was trying to do by coming out on his Facebook Live?
Well, what you alluded to, no, Justin Schmidt is not a talker in any way, shape, or form, and he admits that himself.
Right.
He said, as far as I mean, he's a 21-year veteran of playing hockey.
Yeah.
4 years in the Fed, but he's had a 21-year career now, and he's seen a lot of stuff. Some good, some not good. And he just wants his play to do the talking for him. So for him to feel compelled to speak out really says to me that, you used the word, that there was like a pain inside of him, and he was just to the point where I can't hold my tongue anymore.
You're right. Yeah, and it was tough. I think he's partially talking about some of the situations that I know that fans are trying to help with, especially with Carolina and Binghamton, like with the Dashers and even the way things went down in Watertown at some point. I think there's some reference to there, and even to Mississippi, where he actually, I don't know if he played in, no, he did not play in Mississippi, but
not with them, but against them.
Yeah, but against them. So do you think, and this is just you and me kind of spitballing, kind of talking, kind of like two chums talking here, but through microphones, do you think there is a problem in some cities when it comes to how serious the ownership takes the players and the conditions that they are working in?
If only it was easy to talk about this.
Right.
The one thing I picked up on with Justin is just just fumbling over the words, and that wasn't because he has any kind of speech difficulty or anything. It's just that it's kind of like a mindset. It's like, how do you talk about this without sounding like you're just whining about things? How do you effectively communicate, look, there's inconsistencies here, and we need to talk about them.
Yeah.
I like the fact that a couple times he mentioned that he just wanted to start a conversation. He's not gonna do all the talking. He wants other people to join the conversation and start talking about this publicly. And I think the fact that now this is present and out there, I think that is good.
Yeah.
Because the Fed has some wonderful, wonderful traits and qualities, but there's also a lot of issues that really stem back to the very first year. And I think that the league kind of struggles with its own identity at times.
Yeah.
And so, it's good to get this out there, but it is hard. It's a hard conversation. It's not an easy conversation.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. Now, obviously, the last time Justin played, he played obviously this season with the Watertown Wolves, 19 games, and so he hasn't been with them for a little while. Obviously, it's been documented, it's been refuted by some people who still work with the Wolves that there were some shady things that were going down at the beginning of the season with Charlie Pence Jr. leaving, and then players being indefinitely suspended, with just issues within housing and, pay. That was one of the things that Justin talked about, players not getting paid for weeks, I have to say that Watertown is one of the original members of the Fed. They go back, I think it was the Thousand Island Privateers. Am I right on that?
Yep.
And
Yep.
And listen, I want to make sure that fans know 100% we are not talking about fans. We are not talking about what the fans have done, because recently the fans in this league are and have stepped up for the Danville Dashers, or I'm sorry, the Dashers Hockey Club, right? You know, obviously Carolina and Binghamton are making moves to try to just kind of make their lives a little bit better, right? And that's really what it comes down to, right? They tried, you know, but he did last play with Watertown. And Watertown was in the news. People were talking about what was going on there. And then even team personnel contacted me and said the lies need to stop. Well, what are the lies? What is the truth? What is the lies? And I think this is the hard part about this. When I said earlier in the year, Gary, and I'm sure you heard me say this, there are haves and there are have-nots in this league.
Yeah.
And I think it's getting to the point where there are fans and there are people that support the haves that are outraged by how bad the have-nots don't have it.
Yeah. I wasn't going to say this, but I think I should. I really think I should. The Dashers have not been paid in 4 weeks.
Wow. How?
That's two pay cycles, but they have not been paid.
How is this allowed? I don't understand. I need somebody to explain to me how this is allowed.
It should not be. It should not be. It's criminal. I will use that word. There's a lot of things that I want to say right now. I can't say yet, but I do plan on, when this year is over, one of my projects for the summer is talking about this and really raising more attention to this issue. Basically, Justin Schmidt is, whether he knows it or not, he's handing the baton off to me. And what I'm going to share when it is time is not going to be popular. I will do my best to be diplomatic about it.
Right.
I don't want to, just come across as I'm pointing fingers, because again, there are a lot of good things going on in the league, and it just gets kind of tainted by all this. But anyway, that's. The problem really stems back to the fact that the league has never been very careful about vetting owners or prospective owners. We were very, very fortunate in Binghamton to get someone, a quality owner like Andreas Johansson. Columbus was very fortunate to get Jeff Krupp in. Carolina, they've got Kerry Ross doing a great job with running things. Now, with these organizations, no, nothing's perfect, but it's a good situation in places like that. You have teams like that, and then you have the Watertowns and the Dashers and the Venom, and just stuff that just should not have happened if the league had been more careful at the very beginning, making sure that the owners, the prospective owners, had their ducks in a row. It would have saved a lot of problems later on.
What about here's my problem with a little bit of what you just said, right? We know that right now the Wolves are partially owned by Barry Soskin, and we know that the Dashers are owned by Soskin as well. This is also an owner who owns other and relatively successful teams as well, right? And how does he not take care of two teams or a team, yet he's taking care of other teams? To me, it almost seems like some of that revenue that he's making from one team would be there to help take care of the other team.
Yeah. And, that is also potentially, I'm stressing that word, potentially, part of the situation with Colgan being traded.
Sure.
And we all know that with most of the teams in the league, certain players are paid a little bit more than others. And there is creative compensation that happens. It's just a fact,
sure.
And everybody knows it.
Yeah.
Colgan was one of those better off players.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to kind of wonder, well, okay, Soskin's also one of the owners for Baton Rouge. Did he potentially clear a little bit of space financially there to spread the wealth to a couple of his other teams that aren't doing so well? I mean, I don't know. That's speculative, of course.
Yeah.
But that is something that you have to start asking. It's like, well, what is this part of the picture?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think it's a conversation that needs to continue and whatnot, but we're going to move on. We're going to go to Expansion Watch 2025 because it's very interesting. Christian from Minor Pro Hockey Hero, or Minor Pro Hero, he started up a brand new blog for their media company, basically, Minor Pro Hero. And Christian's, he has a very concise way of putting things together and putting it out there. And Christian, if you're listening, you do a great job, and I just want you to know that. Me and Gary very much enjoy the work that you do, and even conversing with you from time to time. But he did put up, let's see here, this is on February 19th, so, just about 4 or 5 days ago, and this is really what prompted me, is like, I got to have Gary back on so we get to talk about this, because I find this fascinating. Even if only two of these teams ever join, or cities join the ranks of the FPHL, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But it's great to kind of talk about it a little bit. All right, so I'm going to walk through these with you, and you're just going to give me your opinion. Okay, so we already know, confirmed, Topeka, Kansas. They did, 3,100 plus for 4 games on average. Despite the travel, your thoughts on Topeka, the size of the arena, and the city coming into the FPHL?
My thoughts are wait and see. And I wish I could be more optimistic. I'm not saying that from the aspect of I don't think this will work, but the track record in Topeka, and it goes back 20 years.
You're right. It's suspect.
It is not good.
Yeah.
It's not good. And it's not that they didn't have a decent product. It's just they've had a really hard time marketing hockey in general in the Topeka area, and I am hoping that Don Lewis and the ownership team have a specific marketing strategy for presenting the community with the new team, whatever their name is going to be. Fortunately, they have the time to do that.
Yes.
It's not like this is getting put together at the last minute. This is potentially a very good situation, and it could open the door towards more expansion in the Midwest and the Plains area.
Okay.
So it's kind of like putting your stake down in the ground and staking your claim. This territory is ours. It could be a very good starting point, but
right.
It's gonna require maintenance.
Okay. All right. So moving on, them to the Indiana Sentinels. Obviously, a lot of people have seen them on social media. They've got an Instagram. They've got a Facebook. They've been talking about things. Your thoughts? Is there a possibility that this one can come to fruition? I know the questions are, do they have enough money, enough capital? It's things that they have to raise and be ready for. And apparently they have filed a letter of acceptance. So talk to me a little bit about the Sentinels.
Okay. Well, they are officially accepted by the FPHL, conditional upon them being able to raise $100,000 in corporate sponsorships. And this started in mid-January until the end of March. They are well on their way. I have talked to Ian Rosens, who is the GM of the team, and he said, "Yeah, we are building partnerships. We are getting a lot of corporate support."
Mm-hmm.
So if they haven't reached 100,000 by now, they're going to reach it by the end of March, which was the deadline. The only real concern with Columbus is the fact, because this is Columbus, Indiana.
Yes, absolutely.
Is that they're going to have to play at least 1 year in a 900 maximum seat arena.
Right.
And, obviously that's not ideal. However, they do have a feasibility study that they are concluding now as far as two potential sites where they would build a 2,500-seat arena. And as soon as the feasibility study is done, and that also the study incorporates obtaining permits and grants and whatnot. They're doing it right.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing it right. But once they get all that figured out,
mm-hmm.
then hopefully they can get the new arena in by the 26 to 27 season. But every indication that I see, I'm about 90% that they're going to be in the league next year.
Yeah, and one of the things a decision that they made that I thought was a good decision, and is that they were looking at the old Indy Fuel Arena. Indy Fuel fans, if you don't know, are an ECHL team. They moved from one arena to another. This group of people thought, hey, well, we'll just take that arena, right? The one that the Fuel left. And they were like, you know what? After more thought, it's like, no, because then we're going to be intruding on their fan base, and then our fan base might not be as strong or possibly as strong as possibly the Fuel's is. So let's go to Columbus. And to me, that's already starting to show the signs of somebody who's thinking things through, because that's the hard part sometimes with the ownership groups here. All right?
Yeah.
Now, let's get to Dover, Delaware. That's third on his list because there has, obviously, you've talked about it a lot, obviously, over the last couple months as, different things have come up. We've seen these AI-generated pictures and whatnot. But it does seem like there's a little bit more excitement. I mean, I think geographically, I think the league would love to have a team in Dover. I think it would be beneficial to the league, the Danbury Hat-Tricks, the Binghamton Black Bears, even Watertown, even though that's a hike for Watertown. But Blue Ridge, you start thinking, okay, now you're looking down at that Mid-Atlantic area. This could be still beneficial. However, they don't have money, the funding yet, those type of things. So tell me, in 3 years, do we have a team in Dover?
The answer is hopefully. Yeah. Well, now, I'm just quoting Christian's blog.
Sure. Sure.
He and I, we get together about every 3 or 4 weeks, and we talk about, what usually stuff kind of meets up, so we know. Okay, we're hearing the same thing from different sources. But the decision for the Delaware State Fair to close the arena where the Thunder played
Right.
really put a huge sense of urgency on getting this done. The state has prioritized this now as far as we've got to get this done. There is some funding in place.
That's coming from the state of Delaware. Let's make this perfectly clear.
Right.
Like the state of Delaware is actually like involved and invested a little bit into this because of the arena being shut down. They are now invested for the quality of life for their citizens, because that's how I look at it with Broome County and the arena, because the arena doesn't make money, right? It has a fair and decent deal with the Black Bears, but with the Senators, the Devils, the Rangers, even the BC Icemen, the arena's never made really any money, right? For Broome County. And I think that what people need to understand is when a state or a county, the legislative, when they realize that quality of life and bringing business to an area is more important than whether or not you're making a profit on something. And I know that sounds weird, especially in our capitalistic society, but it's why hockey has worked so well here in Binghamton, New York, for ownership groups to come in here and to work with them. So you're basically telling me that Delaware has kind of promised some money to get this to happen.
Yeah, there is a percentage. I don't know what percentage, but there is a percentage of money that has already been set aside and is in escrow, basically. But also, they're looking at partnering with private investors as well to help with the funding of the construction and the operation of the arena, because it wouldn't just be for hockey. That would be the primary tenant, I guess you could say, but they're also talking about doing a lot of car shows and concerts and things like that to help use the facility all year round. Yeah, make it an entertainment facility for the community. Yeah, exactly, and that's just it. It builds a relationship with the community that goes beyond an FPHL team. That would be a big part of it. But that would be the Delaware Thunder prospectively would be the primary tenant. But you've got the community using this, youth programs. You've got recreational leagues. You've got skating clubs. You've got and then you've got potentially business owners who want to do like expos and stuff like that. That would be the great place for that stuff to happen. All right, so let's move on. The Dakota Ghost Drillers, which I absolutely love their logo. I actually like the name. It says in his blog, will apply for FPHL expansion for 2026, 2027. This is in Williston, North Dakota. And yes, folks, if you know your geography, if you know your states, that's really up north. It's really far away from anybody else. But I want you to take this on a positive spin. What this means is that there are organizations and people out there that do like the idea of the Fed. They like single A pro hockey. They see through some of the bad stuff that happens in the Fed, right, with some of the teams having some of the issues that they have, and think that they can provide something for single A pro hockey players and for their community up in Williston, that they are willing to take the chance to see if this can still be a viable option. I'm not talking about the Fed. I'm talking about these people who want to put this together. And this is a report that Christian really got from you. But talk to me a little bit about the Dakota Ghost Drillers. Okay. This fell in my lap one day. I was contacted by the Canyon Sports organization, and they said, this is our plans. They have not filed the application yet. They said, this is, we are just putting this out there. We want to get people's feedback. We want to see what people's reaction to this is and kind of gauge how to proceed with things. So Their release to me with the information and them asking me to present the information was very deliberate. So yeah, and I got contacted by Don Kieran, and it's like I haven't heard anything about this, but the whole idea this is almost like an idea being used as an exploratory format.
Sure.
So Williston is a booming city right now. It's small. It's about the size of Binghamton, but the population in the last 10 years has doubled.
Wow.
Oil drilling there is big business, and so it's a very well-to-do community. Yes, they understand that there are challenges with the geography, but their hopes are that, okay, well, we got Topeka. If there continues to be a push west, I mean, maybe we can have something kind of like what the AHL has right now. You've got the California division that kind of plays its own schedule, but they're still part of the AHL. But obviously, the Utica Comets aren't going to travel to Ontario to play the Rain,
right?
And
right.
vice versa.
Yeah.
Until you get to the playoffs, of course.
Of course.
But that's the idea. That's their thinking, is that we want to give the FPHL time to grow. We want to give ourselves time to grow. And we just want to put this out there to say, hey, we would be very interested in joining the Fed down the road.
Yeah.
I don't know if 2026 is doable or not, but, that's something that potentially could be worked towards.
Now, later in his article, he talks a little bit about Texas and West Virginia. There was a radio interview with, obviously, HC Venom head coach MJ Merkel, talked about where the league is in terms of teams, and he drops some possible hints at expansion. Is there anything? I mean, listen, I have nothing against MJ Merkel. I'm not calling him out here or anything like that. This is a part of the article, so I wanted to bring this up in the conversation. You have talked about previously about Texas as well, right? Beaumont and everything. Is there the potential in West Virginia and Texas to have teams?
It is extremely likely that there will be a team somewhere in Texas next season. What has not yet been determined is, will that be an expansion team or will that potentially be a relocation?
Right.
Both possibilities are out there right now. A couple of sources that I've talked to, people who are inside the league, have mentioned that they have looked at several other sites as well in the going more westwardly, out in the central time zone, which would be great for Topeka.
Yeah.
And the Dashers and potentially Indiana Sentinels and all that. But yeah, it's looking like there will at least be one team in Texas. 2 markets are being explored. Where exactly, I don't know.
Gotcha.
My source will not tell me that. He just mentions we are looking out there, and we have a few places in mind. So, that's that's as much information as I have.
Now, I don't pay attention, Gary, and I want to end on a very positive note. We're going to talk about that in just a few seconds, but I'm kind of wondering. I lost my train of thought here. I should have just asked it, and then we could have gotten to the Binghamton, Carolina stuff. But I'm kind of curious here. There's a lot of, it seems like a lot of buzz about people wanting to join the Fed, but we don't ever hear anything about the SPHL. Why do you think that is?
The SPHL is very content with with their philosophy of maintaining what they have, as opposed to expand and build. Their philosophy is I don't want to say keep the status quo because that sounds passive, and it's not. But they look at things as, we have an extremely good product right now. We are in 10 really strong markets. Well, nine. And one is getting better.
Okay, that's good. That's good that it's getting better.
Yeah, but anyway, they look at things as, we just want to maintain what we have because we feel that it's quality over quantity.
Okay.
That's their thinking.
Well, I'm sure they look at the Fed and they see, the play of the Dashers and them not being able to win, and it becomes a storyline of how many games that they've lost. And I think the SPHL is looking at it going, we don't want that. We don't want to be. And honestly, I understand what they're saying there because it is an image thing, right? There is an image where if someone went to go look at the standings of the Fed and they're like, oh, man, this team's only won one game. What kind of team do they – and I'm not picking on the Dashers. Yeah. I'm really not. I mean, trust me, we're going to talk about some important stuff that, people showing care and compassion and stuff like that. But, again, I can understand the SPHL going, yeah, we want to just be solid with what we've got before we even consider anything else.
Yeah, exactly. They learned their lesson from the failed VC Bobcats experiment.
Yeah.
And it really was an experiment.
Is Danville cursed? It almost. Listen. I'm not trying to. It just feels like. They were strong with the Fed for a little bit. They decided to make the jump to the SPHL. Or the city or whatever, because it's not the same people. But they make the jump. The jump doesn't work. It becomes a huge storyline, and now it's a storyline again with how everything is turning out there. You know what I mean? It's like it almost feels cursed a little bit, unfortunately.
I wouldn't use the word cursed.
Okay, fair enough.
But I will say this. The Dashers were begun too late.
Fair enough.
There was a lot of hemming and hawing going on. The contract in principle with the arena was done at the very beginning of April, and the contract wasn't actually signed until the end of May. And that left no time for marketing and getting corporate support and all that. And then they had a couple of internal changes that happened at the last minute.
Yeah.
So, everything just has been against them this year. And I can tell you from what I know, because I've been very close with some of the people in the organization and with the Booster Club, they just want to figure out a way where they can get done with this year, build upon it, and build towards something better for next year.
Yeah.
And that's
their hope.
Their goal.
Yeah. Gary, speaking of the Dashers, they obviously played 2 games down in Winston-Salem against the Carolina Thunderbirds. Bus breaks down before they can even get out of town. 7 guys and a head coach, I think, get in the cars and drive down to Winston-Salem. They sign a bunch of guys locally, a couple, Thunderbird legends almost in a sense, if you want to call them that, joins the Dashers. They play the games. I think they score 1 goal between the 2 games. Yep. But the bigger story coming out of this has nothing to do with the games. Has to do with the fans and their booster club and what they did. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, it was awesome, and I've got to also shout out to Ryle Purdy, who played in goal.
Yeah,
he ate more rubber than anyone I've ever seen, but he ended up getting the 3rd star of the game because he made 55 saves Saturday. And the applause and the cheers for him, as he was announced, to see the smile on his face was just awesome. You could tell that it was not a good situation, but he still had fun.
Yeah.
And I think the team did too. So hopefully that things can maybe build from here on out. But anyway, with the fans have been very cognizant of what's been going on with the Dashers.
Right.
Barry Soskin is the owner of both teams, although Soskin really doesn't do much with the Thunderbirds. Kerry Ross handles everything with the Thunderbirds, so
Sure.
he's really the guy. But so they understand. They understand that things can be a little tough. So several people took it upon themselves to figure out how they could help out the guys who drove down in their own cars and paid for their own gas and their own hotel expenses and everything, and help them get back to Danville. So they passed around a money bucket. They presented the team with cash as well as some food and supplies and gas cards and stuff like that, which was just awesome. The fact that, I know some people kind of bust on Carolina because, of a scattered few people like Toga Man and everything like that. But the fans in Carolina are great. They are awesome, and they really care about not just the Thunderbirds, but about the league itself,
the community.
So they poured out, and
I think they care about I think they care about the hockey community. Is what you're really trying to say. They are as a part of the small hockey world that we all live in, and I think they care very strongly about that. Yeah,
very much so. We had the pleasure of meeting some of the people during the finals last year. Some of the fans that traveled up. I think it was like 300 that came up, and I got to talk with a few of them, and just everything that they do and how passionate they are about FPHL hockey. It's incredible.
Yeah.
They're a great bunch of people.
So that leads me to, of course, the Binghamton Black Bears fans. Kelly Howe, I'm going to mention you almost immediately. Basically going, listen, we need to do something for these guys. Maybe, make sure that when they're on the bus heading home, hopefully it is a bus that's taking them home on Saturday, that they have just some stuff, right? Just some food, some goodies, some snacks, whatever it may be. And I mean, we've already turned off the comments on that post in the Binghamton Black Bears fan page just because we're going to have enough. Well, I mean, because at some point, sometimes too much is too much because they won't be able to put it on the bus, right?
There won't be any room for the players.
But I'm not surprised here because I remember when Superstorm Sandy happened and knocked out half of, the Jersey Shore and other parts. Hugh Jesselman, who was playing with the Binghamton Senators at the time, who's from parts of Long Island that got hit really hard, and there were some fires and some crazy stuff that happened during Superstorm Sandy that a lot of people didn't want to admit was like hurricane-type freaking storm, but they weren't allowed to call it a hurricane at the time. It was the dumbest thing, right? And the Binghamton fans, these Binghamton fans had nothing to do with that part of New York and New Jersey. They found out that Hugh Jesselman was from there and was rallying together along with Tom Severinsen, the equipment manager at the time for the Binghamton Senators. They just rallied together, and the Binghamton fans just brought out so much stuff and sent it down. It really touched Hugh Jesselman's heart. His love for Binghamton grew so much just because of that, and so that's why it's not surprising to me that if someone calls out and says, "Hey, we need to do this for part of the hockey community," that they're going to do it. And to me, that just it feels so good.
Yeah. I tell you what, I am extremely proud to have been to have the privilege to grow up in the Binghamton area and to become part of the hockey community there. I'm 70 miles away, but every time I come up to a game, everybody welcomes me like I've never left.
Right.
And that kind of warmth and friendship and charity that the Binghamton community expresses, it's so wonderful. And when they see somebody in need, they're more than willing to help. It's not even a question of should we. It's let's do this.
Right.
And that is so awesome. And that is one of the things that makes the FPHL so great. In spite of some of the problems we talked about earlier, this is what made me fall in love with FPHL hockey, is the communities that are so tightly woven together.
Yep.
And not just backing up their own players, but backing up the players from the other teams as well.
Sure.
It's fantastic to see. I'm so proud. I really am.
Yeah, me too. Gary, that's all. I want to leave it on that positive note, that good note. A little bit different of a segment for you and I, kind of covering some big stories around the FPHL. Again, tell everybody, because you do it so much better than I would do it. Tell people how they can listen to the Fed League Flash.
It's like you when you do your must reads. It's just like become ingrained in your head now.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I'm on Facebook, of course. That's kind of the centerpiece. And then we have the YouTube channel, which if you're not subscribed, go to youtube.com/@FPHL Flash. And then I have my audio podcast on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeart, Amazon, Castbox. Choose your fit. No, I won't go through that.
Well, it's the Fed League Flash audio network, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
see?
It is a network. I mean, it is 5 different platforms.
Yeah.
Hopefully one of those platforms, you can tune in and keep in tune with stuff.
Absolutely. He is Gary Ryan from the Fed League Flash. Gary, thank you very much. We'll talk to you real soon.
Yes, all right. Thank you so much, Bob. I appreciate it.
And we'll be right back right after this, right here on the Power Play Post Show.
If you're a Binghamton hockey fan, then you need to check out binghamtonhockey.net for all your news, stats, information, the Binghamton Hockey Hall of Fame, top 10 lists, profiles, and so much more. That's binghamtonhockey.net. You're listening to the Power Play Post Show.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Power Play Post Show. If you made it through all 1 hour and 42 minutes at this point of the Power Play Post Show, thank you very much for listening to the mega edition size of the Power Play Post Show. Hey, listen, there was a lot to talk about and a lot to cover, and we got it all done. All right, the Power Play Post Show is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast, YouTube, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Just search Power Play Post Show on whichever platform you listen to your podcast, and please subscribe. Please join the Power Play Post Show Facebook group. Just go to Facebook, search Power Play Post Show, and share with any of your friends. Check out binghamtonhockey.net for all your Binghamton hockey information and curiosity. And thank you to Rob Lapoulis, our MC, John Petitucci, our musical director, and head coach of the Binghamton Black Bears, Brant Sherwood, and the Fed League Flash's Gary Ryan. Binghamton Black Bears have the Danville Dashers this upcoming weekend, and we're going to all support the hockey community as we always do here in Binghamton. And I am Bob Howard. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time right here on the Power Play Post Show.
Thanks for listening to this edition of the Power Play Post Show. Be sure to tune in next week to the Box Studios Radio Network for all the latest Black Bears news and interviews from around minor league hockey. The Power Play Post Show would like to thank John Patitucci for all the music you hear on the show. You've been listening to the Power Play Post Show.